Hello, beautiful souls. I'm so grateful that you're tuning in. Welcome to my podcast, Misunderstood, guiding highly sensitive people through an emotional dark age. I'm your host, Candace Vandal, and I'm honored to embark on this transformative journey with you. Have you ever felt like you didn't quite fit into the world around you or even your own family? Like your sensitivity was a burden rather than a gift? If so, you're not alone. And here's the truth. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It's a superpower. It's what allows you to feel deeply, to connect with others on a profound level, and to access a higher realm of consciousness. And on this podcast, we're going to explore how to harness that power and use it to create a life of purpose, passion, and true confidence. Here, in this sacred space, we honor your sensitivity as the gift it truly is. Get ready to embark on the journey of unapologetic emotional honesty and next-level healing. Let's dive in together. Welcome back to Misunderstood, guiding highly sensitive people through an emotional dark age. I am your host, Candace Vandal, and today I'm so excited to share with you guys someone who was very instrumental in me finding my path over 20 years ago, Lee Carroll and his wife, Monika Muryani. They are both with me today. Recently, I was on their podcast, Wednesdays with Kryon, and I did their Indigo Emergence Summit, and I had so much fun. Immediately when I met them, I felt a kinship, and I knew they were soul family. So, of course, I'm having them on this show, too. I'm going to read you both of their bios because they're in depth, and I don't want to get it wrong, so bear with me, okay? Since 1989, Lee Carroll has brought the loving messages of Kryon to the world. Lee is the author of 14 Kryon books and co-author of The Indigo Children, an Indigo Celebration, and The Indigo Children 10 Years Later, 17 books total. These books introduced the world to the term Indigo Children in 2000. Spawning many follow-up books by various authors, a movie, a documentary, and lots of interest worldwide regarding our changing kids. The Indigo books have sold almost 500,000 copies worldwide in 24 languages. Lee has been named one of the 100 most spiritually influential living people for 4 consecutive years by the prestigious Watkins Mind, Body, Spirit magazine. During a trip to McKaysville, Georgia at Delphi Metaphysical University in 2012, Lee was surprised with an honorary doctorate degree of science, transpersonal psychology, and metaphysics. The award indicated for his extraordinary contributions from love, wisdom, and spiritual understandings. Monika Muryani has always had a deep affinity and connection with Gaia, Mother Earth. For over 15 years, Monika worked in various national parks with Australia and New Zealand. Following a spiritual awakening, she began to explore the deeper mysteries of life. This resulted in Monika becoming the commensurate researcher and activist of the Kryon material. Monika is the author of 4 Kryon books that provide detailed information about subject-driven topics. Her first 3 books, The Gaia Effect, The Human Akash, and The Human Soul Revealed, help tie together the complex subject of who we are and why we are here. Her most recent book, The Woman of Lemuria, relates to all things Lemurian. In addition, Monika has produced 2 beautiful illustrated oracle card decks. These humans are incredible. I can't wait for you guys to meet them. Let's dive in. Welcome to Misunderstood. I'm so excited to share you guys with my community. Every time I talk to you, I get chills. It feels very aligned, and let's just dive in. First thing I wanted to ask you guys, and this is a little bit personal, is how did you come together in your forces? How did you come together and start doing this work together?
This is probably something that Monika is going to be the best to describe. Girls like to talk about these things.
Yes.
It's more than guys do, but go ahead, Monika.
You know, there's the long version, and then I'll try and make the Reader's Digest version, which is the condensed version. But essentially, I was in a situation where I had my life as I knew it kind of fall apart. And my happy marriage ended. It was really traumatic for me. And it started me on this quest, this journey. And at the time I was working in Australia in the national parks, and I just felt, I actually had a session where I could feel being called to go to New Zealand. So I looked online, there were all these jobs offered, I applied, I was accepted, and I moved to New Zealand. And again, I'm starting to now explore a spiritual aspect, which I had never done before. So my spiritual awakening began, and the very first yoga class that I went to, someone gave me a book, Kryon book 7. Yeah. So when I read that book, I had so many tingles at a cellular level. But in that book was a chapter by a woman by the name of Peggy Phoenix Dubrow, and she does energy work. And I just had this sense of being called to learn and do her energy work. Now, prior to this, I'd actually tried to set up times to learn Reiki, and it kept falling apart. It never happened. But instantly I found a practitioner in New Zealand, and I could tell a story for another hour just on all the synchronicities that happened in learning it. But essentially, learning the work of Peggy Phoenix Dubrow through a practitioner eventually led me to South America to train with Peggy directly. And in that meeting, I got to meet Lee Carroll.
Wow.
And there was this instant magnetic attraction and pull between us that was undeniable. And we both have our own versions of that, but we felt so locked into each other. And I'd put a big intent out before I got on the airplane saying I wanted to meet my soulmate, my deep soulmate. And I wanted that soulmate to be spiritually aware and have financial independence. I had all these things on the list. But I remember I didn't put on the list I wanted them to be available and not married. So that was something Lee and I worked through, because the connection was undeniable, but he was married. And so we connected first at that heart level. There was a lot of ups and downs of working out our relationship within the framework of his marriage. And then it was a couple of years later that I wrote The Gaia Effect, my first book, pulling together all the information from Kryon. And that's really, it was clear that we had a path together delivering the work of Kryon. We had this allied mission, but we also had it was, a deep heart connection first. Yeah. Then came the work. And then after the work, many, many years later, we actually had the situation where he was able to step away from his marriage so that we could be together. So what's your version, Lee? We all have
I just like
versions.
to tell people it's interesting. We have an Australian and an American who met in Chile. It's pretty much the same. It was an instant heart connection.
You know, it's interesting. I had a huge life change when I moved to New Zealand for a few months, many, many years ago, 2006, on a modeling contract. And I ended an engagement while I was there, and I fell in love while I was there. It was such an interesting story. And also, I know this about, I don't know what you guys think, but I know this about soulmates is it's like you're going to have a bigger mission together. It's not even about you. It's about something higher. And so I love that. And I love the brutal honesty about the timing and how it wasn't perfect timing at the start, but it became divine as you kept going. That's so special. Wow. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, absolutely. I have just one quickie story because I know women, we talk about this kind of stuff.
I love the story.
So I remember standing on the edge of the Kilauea crater on the big island of Hawaii, and it was confusing to me to be with someone that was married and not able to freely be with me. And we were making offerings into the crater. We had our leis to throw into the crater and make our offering. And I really, with strong intent, was saying to Spirit, dear Spirit, if I'm not meant to be with Lee, I accept to release it all and put me onto the mission where I'm supposed to be. I know I can get through saying goodbye. I know that often when you're in a situation with a married partnership involved, there's pain there for the other couple. So I was like willing to just end it all and move on with life without Lee. I took off my lei and I threw it out in this gust of wind, I kid you not, picked up the lei and it landed straight back on my chest. So I was...
Don't let that go.
I was continually...
I can attest to that very thing.
I was continually getting signs of things are not how they seem. Keep going. Because, there's times in life where you question... Am I being in integrity? Am I doing what's right? You have this moral compass, and sometimes that comes from programming, and we get conditioned into what society tells us you should do. And so trying to navigate that conditioning and that programming can be challenging. So my compass was always coming back to my center, asking Kryon, asking Spirit, what am I supposed to do? Should I release this? Is this the right way? Is this the right path? And so it hasn't always been the easiest journey. But if you keep coming back to those questions, show me what I need to do, you get shown what you need to do.
Absolutely true. I love that. I had no idea that was your story. I'm so glad I asked. Way to kick it off. Wow. And what year was that when you guys first made contact?
We first met in 2008.
Okay. Wow. Amazing. And when did you get married?
We had a spiritual marriage with a Hawaiian kahuna on the big island of Hawaii, and I believe that was in 2017. I think
it was 2017.
Yeah.
Wow, what a journey. Holy cow. And I love that the center of it is Kryon. Like we talked a little bit about the attributes of mastery of this energy, and I wonder if you guys could really educate us on just the depths of it, the connection you have with it. Lee, how you started channeling, all of that, and how you came together and doing this work together. Really just share with us about Kryon and what it does to your life and how you work with it.
You have to go back a long way. Most of the people who would be watching this may not even been around when this really happened. But you take a look at the fact that I am an engineer, and I always will be, electronics, sound, and that was my life. And it was and continued to right up into my mid-40s. And then what took place was this, I would say, an awareness, an awakening in a very, very classic way. And the classic way was that I was shown some things that couldn't be. I was actually shown some things that, from a logical standpoint, could not happen. Absolutely could not happen. And there was a way to resolve it. And the way to resolve it was to ask about it. And without going into details, I was pushed into asking whether these things could be real, whether they could happen or not, and really led into a situation where I was said to a chair, I said, I've heard Kryon, you said this and that. I don't believe in you. I don't believe in angels. I don't believe any of this stuff. But everything is pushing me to find out. So I said, once and for all, I'm going to sit in the chair, show me or don't. You get one chance. Now, that was in 1989.
Wow.
So we're 38 years ago. And when I sat in the chair, I was shown. Everything stopped. Everything changed. It's almost like I went into another dimension. And when I came out of that, I was mad. I was angry that I felt like I had been manipulated, and I wept, and all of these things, all the things a guy doesn't want to do. And this is the beginning of it. And this is what started I would say the revolution in my life. It took 3 more years, Candace, for me to get over myself and realize that it was real, that it was happening. That's when the book started to be written. All of these kinds of things happened. So 38 years ago is when this all began. So then the next phase was when I got involved with Hay House, and I got 5 books from them. We wrote the Indigo Children book, as you probably know, together, and all of that. So you think about all of these years going by, and it wasn't going to be till, 2008 or so, till I met the person I was supposed to meet. So all of this was a precursor to now, you might say. And there's been a lot under the bridge. One of the things that I used to make my living completely and totally on meetings. That's all I did. And that was, of course, I started doing this before AOL. I started doing this before there was anything called the internet. So as that became more increasingly popular, what we're doing now is called a podcast. That wasn't there. So now, of course, I'm into that, and we do a show every single week, but we also travel. So there's been a lot of changes in my life, but basically it was an entire life changer. I would look at it and say that's when my life began, in my mid-40s. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Monika.
Yeah, Candace, I just wanted to interject because we're getting quite personal here. But Lee's wife at the time was so instrumental in having that happen. So her name was Jan Tober. We still see her on a weekly basis because she's deeply involved in the Kryon work and holding the Kryon frequency. And it was through Jan. She always knew there was an important mission for Lee. And so she's the one that said, there's a psychic in town, you have to come and see him. And he didn't want to go. He hated stuff like that. So he went and suffered through it. There was a cassette tape recording. He took that home, forgot all about it until 3 years later. Jan, again, is saying there's another psychic. I want you to have a reading. Again, he didn't want to do it. But in that reading, the guy said, there's a magnetic master named Kryon trying to get a hold of you.
Ooh, I got chills. Yeah.
Now, that's when he realized he'd heard that before. Yeah, but you went back and listened to the cassette tape and the exact same phrase was there. So that was the setup to get him to look and to give Spirit Kryon one chance. And again, isn't it interesting, the people in our lives, they kind of steer us and lead us. So Jan Tober was that for Lee and really birthing Kryon's energy on the planet. And Jan co-wrote the Indigo Children book with Lee. So she's incredibly intuitive and definitely continues working with that Kryon energy just now behind the scenes.
Incredible.
So it's channeling. And back then, channeling was almost occult. It was not anything that people was relating to, except for a small niche who related to channeling and wanted it. The niche grew and grew, but today it is everywhere. And there's channelers, on our program almost weekly. And you know this.
Yes, absolutely. It's almost like you jumped a timeline into a different consciousness. And I'm so grateful that you did, because my audience knows this, is that, like you said, channeling was kind of woo-woo back then. Now it's like everyone gets it. Even when I found the Indigo Children book, I was 22, I think. And I had, my story, I had been labeled ADHD. And the first book I read that I said, somebody's telling me everything I know to be true about myself that isn't bad or wrong. It was still nerve-wracking to me, because this is how many years ago? I found it over 24 years ago. And at that time, I'm 22 years old, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be a weird one. I don't want to be one that just does all this spiritual stuff. I want to be in society. And it was like waiting for the shift in society. And you guys kind of shifted with it. You kind of shifted society in a lot of ways, but you're also with the shift still. You're doing these summits, you're doing these podcasts. I'm so grateful you're on mine. And you really gave me my path, I have to be honest. Like Kryon and Indigo Children became my path all those years ago. I was just too scared to put it out loud. So I would do it in undercover ways. And I don't know what it is I channel, but I definitely channel something. We can talk about that too. But I just wanted to say that people like you that did kind of were the front runners of things that are now going to be very popular and are very popular. It's so necessary for everybody else who has hits like this and little experiences like this to follow that. And I believe that we are literally becoming who we truly are and shifting consciousness one person at a time. And so your work is major in that way. I want to ask you guys a few other things, obviously, about this, but I want to ask you guys about the paradigm shift, about the evolving consciousness, what's happening with Starseeds. We know from your Indigo Emergence Summit that I was a part of, I watched a couple of the other interviews, and it was so crazy to me how it was so similar, the path. Like, we all had ADD, we were medicated, and then we became these spiritual teachers. Does it blow your mind to see this kind of happening now?
To me, it does. That's why we did the Emergence. We just wanted people to know not what's not being reported necessarily almost anywhere. People talk about feeling you're moving into another dimension, things are happening on the planet, whatever. How many people understand there's an entire generation of young people who are poised and ready to take the reins of everything from teaching to banking to politics? This is what the prediction was. And now we're starting to see it. So we presented this with 9 of you so people could actually see that it is happening, truly. And this was the emergence, I would say. And now there's going to be more than that. But we're seeing it in so many podcasts, especially with young people. And you're one of them, I classify, young people. And then down into the 20s as well. It's just astonishing to watch this kind of wisdom start to appear.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. I want to ask you what you think, or what Kryon has shared with you about what's going to happen. Here's what I mean. A lot of people, there's 2 different dimensions going on that I see in my work as well, where some people think the world is ending, but people like me feel like, no, it's breaking down to build a new. It's almost like the new paradigm is happening, but this has to break down first. How do you see it, or how does Kryon see it shifting, and what's kind of the timeline? I know we talk a little bit about, Starseeds, and we're taking our sort of leadership role in the world of maybe leading from the heart center, from a different consciousness. How do you see this happening right now? What do you think is going to happen?
Number 1, slowly.
Yeah.
Number 2, remember. When the light is turned on, ugly stuff shows. Yeah. It just does. If you've ever had a situation where you lived in a house for a long time and suddenly the workmen bring in a light because you have to do remediation of a leak or something, and all the dirt and ugly stuff shows, you immediately want to get out your mop and your scrub brush, and it's always been there. Always been there. You just didn't see it because the light wasn't on. This is what's going on right now. Everywhere we are turning the light, we're starting to see ugly stuff. And it's stuff that we didn't really see before. We were just really aware of it. Oh, yeah, we know this happens and that happens. And suddenly it's there. And it's not like we're ignoring it. For instance, all of the things that have happened with the men abusing women that have been stars and executives and whatever for all these years. And I say, in my grandfather's world, he would have said, well, yeah, that's just the way of it. And it's been around since Caesar's time and whatever, and it's never going to be any different. Well, we've made a difference. If anybody noticed, you can't get away with that anymore. Now, that is consciousness shift. That is evolution of consciousness. That is a compassionate consciousness starting to appear that never was there before. When you see these kinds of things, socialists will notice it and write about it in books, I believe, how that things are now starting to change. Well, that's the dirt that's showing. We see it in politics, and we always have seen it. So much so that we have a divided country now. We didn't used to. When I was growing up, we didn't used to. So they all knew about the dirt, they just didn't show it. And they all just nodded and said, yeah, it's there, and we'll work with it. Now the public gets to see it on both sides, and they don't like it. And so this is the kind of thing we're starting to see. When we are able to make decisions that will start to clean that up even more, that's when things start to change. We've already begun. We really have. But we are in the middle of, I will call the dirt aspect. The more that shows, the more depressed we get. And we see it and we go, is the earth then just going to be awful? But we're only seeing what was already there at a very, very old time and an old energy. Your grandfather's world is upon us, and we are starting to clean it up. Or we're not. Or we're going to fall on our sword and say, this is it. You're not realizing that it was always there, and now we're getting to see there's a reason the light is being turned on. And this is why we did the Indigo Emergence, to show people that young people are starting to show up that have a baseline, you might call it, of a higher consciousness than we did when we were born, when I was born, when Monika was born. The baseline is so much different that the kids are asking important, esoteric, beautiful questions immediately and are objecting to some of the things they're seeing that we just grew up with.
Yeah, I always say the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. It's just how it works. And one of the things I was going to say on along the lines of the different consciousness is I know I do a lot of work with people who are healing from toxic relationship dynamics. And one of the things I know in my own bringing in my own home was I was feeling into and sensing things that nobody was talking about. They were in denial. So I was like feeling the things, the emotions in my parents or the system that they were denying. And so there was this natural gaslighting going on where a lot of the kids are having these issues that come to me, right? I deal with people my own age, a lot older, a lot younger. And it's always the same thing of not trusting your perception, because let's be honest, in the school system, you guys know all about this. In the school system, the books are 100 years too old. Like this new consciousness is like, but I have this question. One of the reasons I used to get in trouble all the time is I'd say, but why? You're not telling me really why. You're telling me an answer, but that doesn't explain why. So why? And they'd be like, we don't know why. Just you're difficult. Go away. And like that's one of the gifts I think I have is that I find the root cause, the core wound right away. And it's almost this frustration I see with a lot of indigos. Let's go there. Because the indigos are like, but I've always known, and it wasn't there to help me. There was no support to help me. There was no parent or authority figure that could help me with my gifts. So a lot of them got buried, around my age, and a little bit younger. The gifts got buried or put on hold. And a lot of people will come to me, and I'm going to ask you this. They will say, how do I reclaim those gifts? How do I reawaken them? My work is to help them heal the wounds, to really elevate it. But what would you say you've seen in the indigos that you've even interviewed or worked with? How do you think they start to really own the gift after it maybe has been denied or put on hold or not really nourished in the way it needed to be for so many years?
I think claiming it is that first step, and to be able to claim it where you feel worthy of it. I think that's what gets beat up, your self-worth, because everything's trying to program you that you're broken. So if you feel that you've been programmed into broken, how do you come out of that? First of all, I think that's recognizing, no, you're not broken. And I think you already knew that. Yeah. It's just when you hear it constantly, it starts to get to you. When you have that deep self-worth, no, I came in here worthy. I deserve to be here. I carry gifts with purpose. When you claim it, that's where magic happens. And no matter what topic, this is what Kryon has always said, belief comes first. If you don't believe something and cognize it to be true, you can't even go to any other levels or steps or whatever you want. If you don't believe it, nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to change. Believe that you are here on purpose with incredible gifts. Cognize that for yourself, own it. And then with intent, you start to manifest and create it and claim it, even if you don't know. And then there's a whole realm of support around us. They're what I call invisible energies. But just because they're invisible energies doesn't mean they're not there. So many invisible energies around us. What are the energies I'm talking about? Your own guide set that is part of your soul. You have an entanglement with your soul. You have guides. You have helpers. So Kryon has said, I've never been human. I am here as a collective. I'm a group. I'm a helper energy. So you have helper energies in the form of Kryon and others. We have a galactic soul family that we can call upon. We have the creator of all things. We have the earth, Gaia, our partner. And that's the other beauty of why this shift is supporting us now in a time we never did before, that was never around before. So I love hearing about some of the Indigos once they claimed it and came out of the closet with it. So many things shifted around them because the support that was not there in an older energy is now available.
I love this. I actually built a course called I Am Worthy because what I saw through 12 years of doing this work with other people's, everything you just said is that, you know, we come in being told that we're broken, deficient, attention deficit. You have a deficit. I always say it's attention dialed to a higher dimension because it always was. And when we really own the fact that they might have been, this is one of the biggest hurdles with clients of mine, is understanding that the people that raised you or the people that were your authority figures were wrong about you. There's never anything wrong with you. It's that you believe that. And it's really getting to a higher authority over that. I always say you got to go to God. You got to go to the universe. When you go there and see that you were born perfect for your purpose, not perfect for society, that's when the shift starts to happen. But everybody wants to fit in and belong. And they're like, how do I believe if no one else is telling me I should believe? Like they're really looking for a validation. And I say it always comes back to that self-validation because like you said, when you just decide that maybe I am just good, you engender that participation of something higher. And I like how you called it invisible support. Like these invisible energies is 100% what I feel has really shifted me into my work. I made the decision and I said, no, I know I have this thing. I'm going to go all in on it. And my life started shifting. My friend group shifted. My career shifted. Everything shifted into alignment, but you have to choose that you are good as the first step of alignment. A lot of people still have this worry that maybe they're wrong about it. That's also why what you do is so amazing and important because they're seeing, oh my gosh, they wrote a book about me. Oh my gosh, there's this podcast that's talking about me. It's exactly my life. That's how I felt. And anyone that I know that knows your work feels the same. So I think that it's really amazing to really highlight support, not in people, really, but in something higher that guides people to you. And I feel like that's what you guys do too, is you have this higher guidance that's attached to you. And I wanted to ask you personally, how has Kryon touched your life and shifted your perspective? Or even in your day-to-day, how does it feel different to be literally linked up to a channel? What do you call it? An energy, a magnetic being, I think you said, right? How do you feel living in alignment with this day in and day out?
I tell people that what I have, they can have. It's no different. It's no different at all. Sure. I have for 38 years had an angelic partner who told me over and over, this is the future for all humanity. When they discover the help they have, the angel on their shoulder, their higher self, this was the plan all along for us discovering the divinity we have inside. I don't have anything special. I have something that's more visible. That's all. When Greg Braden, y'all know Greg Braden, I'm just assuming most people do, who is first and foremost a scientist. He's not a channeler, but everything that he has looked at as a scientist and has been led to has actually turned out to be a very highly spiritual message. His very latest book, New Human,
Pure Human,
is an example of this, where he revisits another book he did many years ago called The God Code. When you start to take apart what might be a code in the human body, which is in the DNA, it is very carefully explained in the book, and it gives you chills to realize that what the code says very clearly, indisputably clearly, is God inside every cell. We are spiritual beings, and this has been the message all along. So when people say, what's it like to have Kryon in your life? It's the same thing we teach and always have taught. It's you simply discovering the divinity, guidance in your life, where you're not a victim of circumstances or this planet or any of the other things. Now, let me just go back for a moment, because in my generation, the idea that you were unworthy came almost entirely from the church, the religion that you were born in. There are, we call ourselves a Christian nation, so that only meant that we have mostly Christianity in the United States, especially when I was born and through my life. 1 billion people on the planet are still very much involved in this, and the first thing we learned is that we are not worthy. We're born dirty. We're born in sin because of something that happened, and we don't have a chance. We don't have a chance unless we do something here or something there, or give away our power here, or believe in this and that. That, to me, it was a big training, a programming right away. We are born, as soon as we go to church, we're unworthy, and we get to hear it from the pulpit over and over and over. It's the plan of salvation. Because we are unworthy, we have to be saved. I don't know how many of you really understand the programming that goes into that, and what we come out like. I had to get through that, because I went to church most of my life, especially when I was a young person. And so that's why it took me 3 to 4 years with Kryon, who said, you are born magnificent. The Creator put you here with God inside. And everything you're hearing is man-made. It's the best they could do, perhaps, but they got it wrong. They misinterpreted everything. You know, you get me going here, because there's so many things that are good to talk about when you talk about Christ in general, or Jesus in general. And one of the discoveries we made in the Gnostic Gospels that were discovered in Nag Hammadi, Egypt, they were another set of scrolls, but they were a set of scrolls written by Christ's disciples. Mainly you have John, and you have Thomas, and I think Peter was in there too. And it was their idea 30 years after Christ's death of what it meant and what happened. And it's not what you read in Scripture, because it wasn't allowed to be in Scripture, because they're starting to take apart just what we have taken apart. Maybe Jesus was here to show us what we all can do. Yeah. Not to be worshipped. What if Christ-like meant who we could be, and not, to be the Son of God, but to be a spiritual human being on the planet, as an example. That is what I got out of it, and the disciples reported it, especially Thomas, who then became, of course, the doubting Thomas, because he doubted actually that Christ died for the sins of the planet. He said, I believe Christ was there to show us the way that we can be too. And so you see all of these things that we really are programmed to fail, if you want to think about it.
That was beautiful. I love everything you just said. I really resonate in so many ways. And I see so obviously why there's such a generational trauma to heal. It's like, this is the way they were conditioned. There wasn't an option. There wasn't YouTube. There wasn't Gaia. There wasn't Kryon. There wasn't these things to latch onto as an alternative. So it was either this or nothing. So you had to do this. And as we start to awaken and see, wait, there are other ways. And we're more open to our own levels of consciousness, because before it was just shut down. That was it. There's no option. You're woo woo. You're weird. You're making it up. Now it's like, wait a minute. Maybe we are divine beings having a human experience. And the more we tap into that, the more things happen synchronistically and aligned and all these amazing things. So hopefully people will listen to that and take another look. I've always said that too. I think Jesus is the example of what we can embody if we follow certain things, right? If we're in alignment with self and something higher, not the human ego, not the mind, but something higher.
Well, if you even take a look at the masters that we now worship and what they said and what they did, that's the study of mastery. And you take a look at slow to anger, compassionate, think of how did they act? What did they do? All of these kinds of things, which became Christ-like, that's mastery. And we are now being told we can be the same.
I have a million questions for you. Is there anything coming up that you want to share that I haven't asked you yet?
I want to backtrack to when you talked about with your clients, you're seeing two areas where the world is ending, we're in doom, and the other ones have so much hope. I just want to explain a little from Cryon's perspective as to what's going on with that. There's been many channels from Kryon, and it's called the doom bias. So we have had generations after generations after generations with programming, and even in scripture, that there's going to be this Armageddon date. And then there's the rapture where everyone gets saved if you believe this certain thing, but really the program is the Armageddon. So that's already being carried at very deep levels and conditioning, and it is that doom bias. People have that in their own lives as well. They carry a doom bias where there's this expectation, oh, I'm never going to get ahead, or oh, I'm never going to break out of this toxic relationship. There is a bias that there's always that impending doom. It's been the way of it. And even when we cycle back through history and we look at the fractals repeating itself, it's been this pattern of repetition. So we were actually on that trajectory of doom. But then something happened, and it's what Kryon calls the harmonic convergence. This happened in 1987, and it was the first globalized, synchronized meditation event for peace. And it happened on a global scale. But behind the scenes, remember these invisible energies I was talking about? This is where Kryon has said there was a poll of the higher self of every human on the planet asking, do you wish to step into the energy that you set up for yourselves as change and to go on that path? And the answer was yes. And because, I don't remember being asked that, by the way, this is happening at a higher level, but because the answer is yes, it initiated a shift in human consciousness. That is what is unfolding. That is why Lee said the light is shining, the dirt is showing, because we initiated it as a collective consciousness to do this. Now, just because you say yes, it doesn't mean it's automatic. We have all of these programs to undo, but the best news is that we are on a new track that has never been on before, and so it's so uncomfortable. Think about any situation in your life where you've had to go to a new workplace or you move to a new neighborhood and you don't know anything. You got to find where things are, and it feels uncomfortable, that getting to know things. When things are familiar, it's comfortable and you can navigate it. we are in unfamiliar territory, and it becomes difficult to navigate that. But at the same time, we have this clean slate of beginning again, and there's so much support. So the reason we feel that there is that end of something, programming, but also from another perspective, it is the end of an old energy.
Yeah, thank God.
It's the end of an old, and Lee's first book that he wrote, I think published in 1993, was called The End Times, because it was addressing that very thing. We are moving to the end of an old energy of a barbaric society that wants to go to war and kill each other, to now step onto what Kryon says, graduate ascension status path. So we have begun that step. That's why you have those who are filled with so much hope, because it's not wishing it's going to happen. It's knowing fundamentally that the shift has already occurred on the planet, and we're at the very beginning stages of that, and we're creating a new reality that is one where we are multidimensional, and which is, what's that mean? It means we are operating above the three-dimensional plane or four-dimensional plane of what you see is the only thing that exists. No, there is so much more that exists outside of what we see, and we're designed to connect to that and operate from that place.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh, that was such a good explanation. I think people are going to grasp that. I also love that you said multidimensional, because, you know, those of us who have always, you know, one of the things I think about ADHD is it's just a multidimensional kid in a one-dimensional world where we're like, wait, I'm feeling this though, and I can see what they're going through. There's so many things at once. When we start to embrace that, that's when the gifts start flowing too, because you're not just getting information from the 3D reality, you're getting it from 5D, and you're anchoring it here. And I feel like the new kids are bringing the new world in a bigger consciousness space. And I think everything you just said, both of you, is so educational, but also just clicks for me. Like when you talk, I'm like, yep. It just clicks. It feels like truth, right? Gosh, there's so many things I could talk about. You know, today's the Lionsgate portal, by the way. How divine is this time? I just noticed that. I guess, I mean, I could talk for 5 more hours, but I want to thank you guys for sharing everything you shared with me today. Is there anything else I feel like we're missing that we want to add to this podcast? I feel like there'll be more because I want to talk to you guys more, but is there anything else you want to add today?
I would like to tell you that regardless of where you look, it's really hard to get a consensus of what we're talking about on this show that would appear on the news or would be a consensus of any kind, I would say. So it's hard to believe it. So you watch the show and you say, this is really great, and then you go back to work and it's same old, and the news is the same old. It's hard because it beats you up. It beats you up on a daily basis because you wonder what's going on. That is going to start changing. And then you ask about what I think is next, and I will tell you. It's slow to happen. But one of the things that we measure our society about is, I would say, the entertainment industry. We're glued to that. Whatever, today we're always looking at screens for whatever reason. And then things pop into our screens, even if we don't want them to alert us or give us or sell us something. And that's just the way of it. We cannot change that right now. What I predict is a different, perhaps you'd say, consciousness of storytelling in films. I think that you're going to start to see more of the hero's story. Be prepared for some things you don't expect, whereas we've had hundreds of movies about the aftermath of World War III, Armageddon, alien invasion, pandemic, we're killing the population. That was very, very popular for a while. Now, I want you to watch this because I firmly believe it, that you're going to start seeing movies where AI starts to be the hero instead of the villain, where you're going to start seeing the aliens coming and helping us and saving us instead of destroying us or wanting to eat us. In other words, you're going to start seeing a little bit of a shift toward hope. It has to start there. If we're always being given stories where humans lose, it is a tough one. And that is what that's been the case, where we lost everything, we're starting it again, but it always has that doom to begin. What if it isn't? What if we change it at the last minute, or these kinds of things? There's going to be more uplifting, heroic stories that are told about humanity, not just the one guy that's getting revenge. That's the popular one. We're filled with action movies about revenge. Yeah. What if it starts to be about compassion, changing things that nobody thought could change? What if there is a movie about compassionate politics, where it shows to be an answer that nobody thought of in a film? And everybody will say, wow, that was great. And of course, that can never happen. If enough people see the film, it probably will. These are the kinds of things. Whistleblower movies that will show us some things that we need to see. I'd love to see a whistleblower movie about COVID. I'd love to see, what really happened and why, and all of these things. And then we start to get a bigger picture. Not just that, but we start to see what we can do better. This is what I see, a change in hope, and I see it in the entertainment business first. More, I would say, legit movies of reality that makes a difference, instead of fantasy that's just revenge and killing. So look for it, because I believe that why it's going to happen is because more people are going to glom onto it and go, this is good. I like this one. I like this kind of a movie, because, it's humans win kind of a movie. And that's my prediction.
I feel like your prediction is correct. Because you're always correct. I feel it in my bones. Let's go with that. I think that's amazing. And I love that you said it's going to be hard for people to believe, right? They walk away from this podcast, they walk away from the movie. It's really implementing. And I think one of the things you said at the beginning that we should really anchor at the end is that you have to believe first. You have to believe, and you have to take aligned action steps in alignment with that, and not worry about anybody else telling you you're crazy or wrong or whatever, because the people that believe and continue to go receive, right? So let's just be a bunch of believers. Again, I love you guys. Seriously. Thank you so, so much for doing this with me today. I hope we can do a part 2 and a part 3. Is there any, seriously, and maybe a part 19. Is there anything that you want to share with people, where to find you? I've put all of your stuff in the notes, but any last things of what you're up to, what to look for before we go?
Everything we have is kind of centered in cryonmasters.com. I also have a YouTube channel where you can see the channeling. But the Kryon Masters is kind of where it's at right now, and we're making some changes there too to make it easier to navigate, fewer things to look at and choices, just so people can see what we do.
Yeah.
We'd love to have everybody know that once a week, if you've enjoyed this and you have what we're doing, and Candace knows, once a week we have a program. It's reasonably priced. It's a program every single Wednesday for 5 years. We invite you to be part of a spiritual soul family that we have, a time of peace, a time where you can recharge, and it's on Wednesday evenings. I'd love people to take a look.
Yeah, and we're actually doing live events, probably around once a month, give or take, in the US. So there's amazing places that we're going, and there's nothing like being in the energy of Kryon, where you're in a room of soul family and there's this coherence that develops in the room that just kind of amps it up through the roof. So you can connect with us online through cryonmasters.com, or you can come and be with us physically in person at one of the events that we do again, the events you can see on cryonmasters.com. I think the last thing I want to leave people with, fear can shut us down. And we go through phases, even in personal challenges. We can have situations thrown at us where we react with fear. And fear is designed as a survival technique for us as a human species, because it puts us into action to get away from the Bengal tiger that's chasing us, right? So there's that survival part. But it's also, you can create fears in your own mind of things that haven't even happened. So we have the power to take back control. And is this a fear that I'm creating in my mind, or is this actually a tiger that's chasing me? Either way, we have the ability to address the fear, look at it, we can dismiss it. And there's a statement I've been using more recently that I think helps shift everything. And again, it comes from belief, but just this statement, if you can say it every day, I am taken care of. If we can repeat that with a conviction, an utmost conviction that you are loved, and not only loved, but you're taken care of. Often we're supporting others, or we're doing things and we always feel, well, what about me? Who's taking care of me? You are taken care of. And the more you invite that feeling of being taken care of, you'll start to see things shift around you to give you evidence that you are taken care of. So that's my final thing I want to leave everyone with every morning or every night. I am taken care of. Oh, it feels so delicious and so good knowing that I'm taken care of. And part of us being taken care of is that we've made our way to Candace's podcast. So this has been so delightful.
Believe and receive. Thank you so much. I feel the same. I love being around Soul Fam. I am calling you guys that because you are that for me. I can't wait for you to do your live events. I'm going to be there. Sign me up. Thank you for sharing all the things, all the ways people can find you. Again, thank you so much. And I'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.